Alright, what is going on guys? It's Tazz here, and welcome back to the channel. Now today we've got for you guys is another Flash video. So spoiler warning if you guys haven't seen the entirety of The Flash Season 4, but with that out of the way, let's continue. Going into the finale for The Flash Season 4, we were promised two big teases for the next season. One of which we saw, which was the reveal of the mystery girl who was in fact Barry and Iris' daughter Nora, who came from 30 years in the future and has made a big mistake. Now that mistake of Nora's is most likely her coming back in time and interacting with all of the different members of Team Flash in the present, which, to make matters worse, most likely led to the whole satellite incident taking place as well, forcing Nora to mess up the timeline even more to ensure Barry's survival so that she doesn't Back to the Future herself out of existence. And now there have been some theories going around that possibly we saw two different characters throughout the season, and that the mystery girl that we actually saw go and interact with the different members of Team Flash was in fact a twin sister of the Nora Allen character that we met within the finale. So I guess it is a possibility that the different times that we did see Nora, or who we thought was Nora, going and interacting with the different members of Team Flash earlier on in the season, that was in fact Nora Allen's twin sister, and maybe Nora is actually here in the present to try to fix the mistakes that her sister created. Now I think that this is a pretty interesting theory, and I feel like it could play out pretty well, but I just, in my opinion, don't think that this would happen. But one piece of support that I do see a lot of people using is the fact that Nora's haircut or hairstyle has seemed to have changed since the last few times that we saw her. If you guys remember back the last few times that Nora actually showed up, she had sort of this longer ponytail hairstyle, and then when we saw her within the finale, she did have sort of a shorter haircut or shorter hairstyle. So some people are thinking that that sort of shows that maybe this is a different character, but in my opinion, I think it's just there to show the passage of time, and that maybe Nora has been living in the future with the repercussions of her changing the timeline for quite a while now, and then she's finally come back to try to fix this mistake. Or the change in hairstyle could also be sort of just a small little way to signify the change in the timeline. But another thing that is brought up quite a bit by some people is the fact that she's acting quite a bit more serious, and she's not really talking quite as fast and is not as, hyper, not as jittery and stuff, I guess you could say, as she was in the last couple of times that we had met the Nora character. So in my opinion, again, I feel like this is just kind of because she's realized the consequences of what she did, and she's kind of realized that, hey, I created Flashpoint 2.0 when I went in time and messed things up and messing with the timeline just like her dad and everything. So again, I just don't think that this is a way to show that this is a different character. I think it's just to show possibly the change in the timeline, the passage of time, as well as her realization that she really did mess up big time. Also, it was said in an interview that I will link down in the description that Nora specifically chose the different times and locations she traveled back to for a specific reason, so I do think it is safe to assume that all of this is Nora's doing. And now, not to say that we won't see a twin sister or even a twin brother at some point later on down the line, I just don't think that's what's going on right now. But with Nora going back in time and messing with things, creating her own flashpoint, and making this huge mistake, what was the result of all of this? In my opinion, I think it would have to be the big bad for Season 5 of The Flash, or at least one of the big villains for the season, depending on if they go with a smaller villain to start, only to reveal the true villain in the back half of the season. And remember how we were promised two big teasers for next season within the finale? The second one was supposed to be the setup for the villain of next season as Cicada. And now, due to the description of a scene that was supposed to be in the episode, it said that there was someone with a lightning bolt dagger, similar to that in which Cicada has in the comics. As well as recently some casting descriptions and audition tapes that have leaked out have also suggested that the villain for Season 5 will in fact be Cicada. But this scene teasing Cicada as the villain for Season 5 was supposedly cut for time constraints, and I'm not sure if I 100% believe that this is the full reason. Maybe it was because of some of the backlash that was received after the leak of this, so maybe they kind of took it out of the episode and were like, maybe we'll tweak what we have planned for, maybe we won't make Cicada the main villain for the the entire season, but it was also said that this scene that was supposed to be in the episode will either be released online shortly, or it could also be released at Comic-Con this year. So most likely, if Cicada is the villain, or at least a villain for next season, then surely Nora, messing with the timeline Allen style, would have created this new threat for Team Flash to deal with within Season 5. But let's just say for a moment they do decide to do what Arrow did within Season 6 with Caden James and Ricardo Diaz, and start the season with one villain, only to reveal an even bigger threat in the back half of the season. And I think if this was the case for Season 5, we could see Team Flash dealing with the whole Nora and Cicada stuff for the first 9 to about maybe 12 or so episodes of the season, and then have some other villain introduced that is an even bigger threat than Cicada was. According to those same interviews that I did link down in the description, it was also revealed that family will be a pretty big part of next season. Obviously with Barry and Iris and Nora, but also with Caitlin trying to bring back the Killer Frost side of herself, as well as dealing with whoever this Thomas character is. Most people have come to the agreement that Thomas is most likely Caitlin's father, who had probably survived, and would most likely be the key to bringing back her Killer Frost side, as well as revealing her true origin. So I feel like this would be really cool, no pun intended, to see Caitlin reunited with her father and sort of get some more clarity on Killer Frost, and then to have him maybe end up turning out to be the big bad for the rest of the season after Cicada. I think that that would be pretty interesting to see. But more likely than not, Thomas will most likely end up being just a smaller character throughout the season that is sort of just involved with the Caitlin Killer Frost side of things, and possibly even be a smaller villain, but most likely will not rise to the rank of big bad for the season after Cicada. I feel like if Cicada ends up being taken out by the mid-season or around the mid-season of Season 5 of The Flash, I think the villain that will take up the big bad position will of course be none other than the fan favorite character, the character that everybody wants to see on the show and would make this show a million times better than it already is, and I'm of course talking about Godspeed. Just kidding. It's not Godspeed. It's Cobalt Blue, obviously. All joking aside, I feel like the best villain to take over after Cicada's defeat around the mid-season would in fact be Cobalt Blue, and hopefully that version of Cobalt Blue would actually be a revived version of Eddie Thawne. Now, everyone has been making videos on Cobalt Blue, and I'm sure you guys know all of the backstory and all of these sort of little background stuff that you need to know on the character, so I won't get too far into that. But what I will say is I feel like if they do come up with a really, really good way to have Eddie back and have him as the villain, and sort of maybe him seeing how happy Barry is with Iris, and maybe thinking about how his life could have been if he didn't die, if he didn't sacrifice himself, I feel like that would make for a really good and really awesome villain and a pretty awesome backstory for this version of Cobalt Blue. So as you guys may or may not be aware of, in the comics, Cicada does have the power to revive people and bring people back from the dead, so I feel like if for some reason Cicada's plan throughout the season would be to revive Eddie and bring him back to life, I feel like if Cicada did end up bringing Eddie back to life, this could maybe twist him in a way, and once he sees the life that Barry has and he kind of realizes, he's like, hey, I wish I kind of had that life, maybe that kind of pushes him over the edge into becoming the main villain for the rest of the season and makes him become Cobalt Blue. Now, this is just some wishful thinking and wishful speculating, I guess you could say, as to the possibility of getting two villains for next season, but I just feel like if we did end up getting to see Cobalt Blue in addition to Cicada, I feel like that would make the next season even better, and they both do fit the description of non-speedster villains, even though there is a possibility for Cobalt Blue to take speed and use it. He's not technically a speedster, so both Cicada and Cobalt Blue would fit that non-speedster Season 5 villain description. But speaking of speedsters, Wally West, Kid Flash, the actor Keenan Lonsdale did confirm over on Twitter and Instagram and everything that he will not be back as a series regular on Legends of Tomorrow or The Flash next season. It was confirmed he will in fact be within the first episode of The Flash Season 5, but that's all we know at the moment. He may be in the first episode of Legends as well. I'm not 100% sure, but it was confirmed by him that Wally will not be a regular on any of these shows next season. Now, this is unfortunate. I really did love Wally when he went over to Legends. I really did like Wally in the last couple of seasons. I just felt he was terribly underused, and I felt like he just got a lot better when he went over to Legends. So it will be sad to see Wally not be in the Arrowverse next season as much as he was this season, but it is nice to hear from the actor himself that Wally will be appearing whenever he is needed. But other than that, guys, what do you think of all of this craziness? Do you think that Nora is responsible for the creation of the Flash Season 5's villain, that being Cicada, and do you think he will end up being the big bad for the entire season, or do you think someone else like Cobalt Blue is going to end up taking over as the big bad after the mid-season point? Also, what do you guys think about less Wally going forward on the DC TV shows? I want to know your thoughts on all of this down in the comments below. But until next time, guys, it's been Tazz, and I'll see you guys in the next video.